What's up, guys? Brady Figuel here, coming at you with a review for the new Woe Is Me album, Daybreak, releasing actually tomorrow, Friday, August 22nd. This was a new band to me that I was definitely intrigued to listen to. I guess they've been around for a few years. I believe this is their third album. And I'm always on the lookout for some new modern metalcore bands that can kind of pull off that modern style in ways that still manage to at least be interesting to me, because modern metalcore as a whole is a genre that nowadays is a bit hit or miss for me. It's so easy for any modern metalcore band to make songs that just sound generic or soulless or just uninspired, just because of how just prevalent this style is across any kind of rock or metal at this point. So going into this record, I really wasn't sure what to expect. I always expect the best. And in this case, I was very happy that I went into this record with an open mind, because it ended up kind of surprising me, especially with this just being a band that I was new to. They did really impress me with this album, not gonna lie. Just right from the opening track on here, which is fittingly called The Opener, this album is set up from the start, just having a very soulful and very pleasant to listen to kind of vibe. I mean, you listen to this intro track, which, for the record, any kind of intro, outro, or interlude tracks is not normally something I compliment in a video, but the melodies on this track they're so just beautiful. This song absolutely serenades you. And even though I probably still won't come back to this track by itself, just because it does pretty much fully function as a mood setting intro interlude track for the album, but I will say I like it because it functions really well in that role. And like I kind of just alluded to, the album very much follows suit in this case. There are several moments on here where, even despite some of these songs getting pretty heavy, not gonna lie, this album just has this brightness to it that it feels like it is radiating this positive, tender energy. Whether it's the emotion-packed choruses on Here's to Me, the first proper track, or also Borrowed Time 2 tracks later, or the kind of yin and yang dynamic on Devil in My Mind, which might be my favorite song on here, or obviously the really tender, soulful performances across the board in the album's main ballad, Bedtime Stories. These songs just all show and exhibit such prominent, just raw emotion. They feel really inspired. They feel like the emotions were really shining through, as opposed to kind of some songs that maybe try to sound emotional but don't really get there. These songs feel like they don't really have to try to really exhibit the emotion that were put into them. So right off the bat, that was a big compliment that I had for this album, and something I noticed right away after my first listen, which is always great to see. I love hearing records that are just so obviously like inspired and labored over in the writing and in the performances as well. There's nothing worse than listening to a song or an album where the band just sounds like they're going through the motions. It's the complete opposite for this record. And also, interestingly enough, this album gets pretty fucking heavy at times. I mean, the kind of 1-2 punch halfway through the record of Hell House and FU2 then, these songs almost lean deathcore in some of their vocals, especially those more guttural type vocals and a lot of the percussive, down-tuned, and breakdown type riffs that kind of take up the majority of these songs guitar-wise. Hell House in particular is just absolutely vicious. I mean, the riffing in this song, it just feels like it is punching you in the face repeatedly. I did crack up at the ending of the track when there's that little vocal blip where he goes, or some shit like that. A little goofy, but I mean, at least it's at the way tail end of the song. It doesn't really take away from the aggression and the heaviness of the track itself. The vocals in this song are absolutely vicious. I wasn't expecting to hear a song this heavy and this, even dare I say, somewhat extreme on this record, that I was expecting to be more of like a post-hardcore type of thing, or a melodic modern metalcore stuff. And like, even despite this, it still feels so snug and at home and natural alongside these more melodic and bright tracks. FU2 then I don't think is quite as strong as Hell House, just because some of the lyrics are a little bit cheesy to me. These type of kind of almost beat-down leaning lyrics don't really do it for me that much in general, but instrumentally I still think the song is great, and performance-wise, the vocals again are just absolutely crushing. Sick Joke too later in the album is another one that's just really intense, aggressive, and heavy. That song is comprised with just a series of just growling guitar riffs, and some really fast double bass drumming. Something else I really enjoyed about this record that I think not enough modern metalcore bands employ is some genuine, like, structural nuances and songs that feel unpredictable. There isn't a whole lot of just your standard verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, typical format on this album. There's a lot of deviation, whether it still kind of follows that format and the verses or choruses themselves are just a little bit different, or there's kind of different sections kind of shoved in there, or they leave out certain parts. There's a lot of structural diversity on this record, and I love hearing that. I think that adds so much to any album by any type of musician or any type of band, but especially, like I said, in modern metalcore, it just really spices things up. A good example of that is, again, the kind of first true track on here, Here's to Me, Story to Tell Part 2. That song has like this really cool like mid-song breakdown that kind of happens out of nowhere, but it works. And shortly after that, there's a cool little solo that I thought was interesting. The next track, Seminole Boulevard, really strips things down for the second verse and brings in a lot of like sugary type melodies. I thought that was a creative choice to kind of switch things up with that song. Bedtime Story is probably the closest true track to a ballad on here. Still has some like heavy rhythm section parts over this really emotional, tender, soulful music that manages to still complement it really well. And again, I thought that was some kind of neat, out-of-the-box thinking, songwriting and arrangement-wise. Devil in My Mind, too, I'll give that same compliment to. Just overall having kind of unorthodox moods kind of over each other, but doing it in ways that still feel like natural and authentic. It never really feels forced with these songs. I also have to give a huge shout out to Devil in My Mind for, this is really rare for me, actually pulling off some onomatopoeia vocals, if that makes sense. The na-na-na part. I don't really hate shit like that, but this is one of the few instances, recent instances at least, that I can remember where it really does end up making the song a lot more anthemic, really sending home that catchy refrain, which really is the goal of stuff like that. And the closing track on here, again, fittingly called The Closer, although this time it is a full-length song, is another kind of ballad-type track that it's just a really sweet song. And again, in its structure, it may not be as adventurous, but the song just feels so like smooth the whole time. You barely even notice any structure it has. I was very impressed with this album. I do have a few small criticisms. For one, I think at this album's worst, it does border on generic at times. The most glaring example for me in that regard would be the track Odd Behavior. This is a track that doesn't have really any structural diversity to it or surprises. It has somewhat of a dull chorus that I find derails a bit of the momentum that the verses and the heavier music establishes before it. And to a lesser extent, I kind of thought the same thing about Seminole Boulevard, despite, like I said, that track having some genuine some genuinely interesting musical ideas, especially, like I said, that second verse and the kind of slight gent influence in the main riff. The chorus itself ends up feeling a bit flat for my taste. And Sick Joke, despite enjoying a lot of the heavier elements of this song, and there is kind of these this bubbly synth into like a pre-chorus section, I find the chorus itself kind of just ends up crashing into the song, and it doesn't feel like that smooth of a transition. And as a result, this song does feel a little bit robotic in that regard. But none of these tracks are bad. That's the thing. They're just tracks that I don't think offers as much interesting ideas as other songs on here. And I do think maybe the album could have been arranged a little bit better. Just having the back-to-back hammering of Hell House and FU2 then, and then going straight into Bedtime Stories, the really tender ballad. I thought that was a little bit of a jarring transition. I think maybe the heavier tracks should have been spaced out a little differently, and maybe Bedtime Stories could have been after one of the more heavy yet melodic tracks, like Devil in My Mind or Seminole Boulevard, perhaps. Aside from that, I also enjoyed the track Borrowed Time, for the record. It's got these really twangy keys and interesting melodies in the verses that bring this cool element of atmosphere. There really isn't a whole lot of negative I have to say about this record. It was a very pleasant surprise. The songs feel really inspired. The album is very well produced and performed, especially on the vocal front. The vocals on this entire record, the heavy parts are absolutely crushing and vicious. The melodic parts are just packed with emotion and pure soul. The riffing style on this album, despite being really hyper-modern, which a lot of times is something that kind of brings music down for my taste, I still think it was pretty well done on this record, which again says a lot. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. This is a really good album, honestly. For all those reasons, I'm going to score it a 25 out of 30. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. If you end up checking out this album when it does drop tomorrow, please comment below what you think, what your thoughts are, what you have to say about anything I have said. Remember to hit the subscribe button for more rock and metal-related content and album reviews, as well as check the description of the video for my Instagram, Spotify, and Threads links. As always, thank you guys once again so much for watching. I'll catch you guys later. Peace.